Autumn, you have to feel absolutely amazing. I mean, playing such a pivotal key role in bringing this project to life centers. I mean, the world is raving about it. The artwork, the creativity, the storyline, the list goes on and on and on. Like, how do you feel?
No, I think because this is a filmmaking family that I care a lot about, and I've worked with before on a very difficult project that was very special, and to get to do it again with them on something even more special, um, those are the type of jobs that you dream about, to be honest. And so the fact that audiences are, responding in this way and, to be able to tell a story about my ancestors, to see people that look like me up on the screen in this format, it's a very special place to be. So I can only, yeah, thank God and thank Ryan, for allowing me the trust to tell this story. And it's really nice, I think, as a DP when you do work that resonates this much and
Yeah.
multiple times people have gone back to see it. Um, yeah, it's very unique.
Oh my God. How did you emotionally connect with this project? Like, was it the script, like the storyline, Ryan? Like, how did you really peel back the layers of like that emotional, connection to Sinners?
Yeah, I didn't know, when he sent me the script, I knew that it was a period piece, and I think I knew he wanted to shoot on 16, but I didn't know anything about it. So that was fun to get the script. I read it the night before I went into production on another film, and I couldn't put it down. I read it through, and
Mhm.
since I was going into shooting another movie, I sent him an email with a bunch of my thoughts. And I was beyond excited and over the moon about like the story because obviously it's how original it is, but the fact that we're kind of it's this multi-genre story, but to be able to tell your ancestor story. My father was born in New Orleans. He's Creole. My great-grandmother was born in Mississippi. Um, so I had a lot of connection to it. I obviously wasn't raised in the 30s, so I don't wasn't in the space during that time. But, I have visited New Orleans many times and, I have family very similar to kind of, the same landscape and upbringing. So it wasn't foreign to me, but the way
Mhm.
that Ryan told it was so unique and, these characters are so realized and jump off the page and the ensemble that he puts together. He's very good at that, putting together like these kind of really brilliant ensembles that you have different characters that you can relate to, one's like your auntie, one's like your uncle. Um, so it felt, very familiar to me and felt very much like him. So, just reading it, where you can, relate, being who you
Mhm.
are just right off, off the page. And then just the story that he wanted to tell, as far as photography from the time and place, Jim Crow era, and people working the land and, certain skin tones and the
Mhm.
landscape, all that stuff I understood, and he gave me beautiful references for it. Um, so I think it's just like a dream project, it was very exciting to kind of come up with that, you know, world with the team that we had because everyone was so on point and so inspired, When you're that inspired by a story, I think it shows, in how everyone works together.
Let me ask you this, as a DP and as a obviously like cinematographer, like how important is it for you to truly connect with the piece? Is it possible to execute in an impeccable way, like minus the connection to the project? Or like how would you like explain that?
I think for me, I've been fortunate enough to work and I choose projects that I have a connection to
Okay.
or that are inspiring. Like if you look at the work that I've done, I mean, I
Mhm.
tend to work with my friends, with people that I want to break bread with outside of the workspace that I,
Yeah.
care about or um, that I feel are good people, and that become friends outside of work. So
Mhm.
that I think is number one for me because when I'm on set, I'm putting I'm putting everything into, making
Mm,
this and going on that visual journey with the director. So I have to like him or her and I have to believe in them and be inspired by them because they're my biggest inspiration, right? They're the ones that hire me, they're the
mm,
ones that trust me to tell their story. So I really want to respect that person. Not to say
mm,
that, some jobs can be jobs, but I do always tend to feel like I need to be excited by the material and I have to have some
mm,
connection to it because there's so much emotion that goes into being a cinematographer and putting
mm,
that emotion into your framing and your lighting that audiences are keen to, under to not connect, and so
yeah.
when they see something that's off or, doesn't feel right, you know, I want them to always be in the world and not kind of be bumped. So I find that, it's better if I'm inspired by that. And I've
And I
been
think,
lucky. Yeah.
yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's also interesting, you being a woman in what can be considered to be a male-dominated industry, in business. Where do you find your confidence as a woman cinematographer?
I mean, I was raised by my mom. She remarried later in life. And I have a stepdad, wonderful stepdad. So I think, she remarried when I was in eighth grade. So, seeing a strong woman, single mom, work hard to raise a child by herself, that wasn't lost on me,
Mm-hmm.
and, she's someone who kind of, I look up to her and, she works in business and I've seen her fight her way through many a meeting and many, positions where she was the only woman in the field that she was working in. And watching her have to, be a boss and guide men, so I saw that at a young age. So I would say that like, I was paying attention clearly. I never had any family in the film business, so I didn't, grow up thinking I would be a female cinematographer, or sorry, not female cinematographer, but a cinematographer. And
Yeah.
then, later in life when I decided I wanted to do it, I looked into it and there weren't that many of us, so I learned that
Mm,
later when I was investigating it. But there were some, and if there's one, there can be more. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, because there are so many men in my field, it's really just about like being able to communicate your vision, being able
mm,
to lead people, whether they're women or men, and really kind of be able to be a good leader, but also explain what you want. And those
mm,
are all tools you learn, and I find that, through the years, I've been able to kind of, you know, level that up. And, I'm working in really big sets with Ryan, where um, we're executing on a high level with a lot of crew. You can imagine like Wakanda Forever is a huge movie and stuff. So it's
mm.
really nice that, Ryan entrusts me to be that leader for my department and, he believes in me. So that alone is very confidence boosting.
Yeah. When did you fall in love with cinematography?
Yeah, it wasn't until my undergrad is in art history. So
Mm,
I came up doing photography. I've always taken photos of my family and friends, and it wasn't until college I was doing my undergrad at LMU in art history. I took, because you take a bunch of different classes to fill your curriculum, and I took a genre film course, and we had to
mm,
write a couple papers on some movies. And I just started going like, wow, this is more complex than just watching it. Like, I want to know who's doing the photography. I want to know who makes the images or who lights them. And so then I
mhm.
started doing homework, and then I just got obsessed, and then ultimately, graduated, had a job in advertising, and then decided I wanted to go back to school and go to one of those film schools. So I went to AFI
Oh,
to learn
wow.
how to be a cinematographer. So.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Were there any particular like scenes or shots that were like extremely difficult for you to capture? Like, what are some of those scenes, if any at all, right?
Um,
That really gave you a struggle?
I mean, I would say like my favorite place to be is when the camera's rolling, like on set with the camera rolling. That's where I feel my best and like, I'm in my zone. prep is always something that can be very tedious and logistical because you have to organize everything and stuff. But once the camera's rolling, I feel very comfortable. Um, I think there's never enough time, there's never enough
Mm-hmm.
time to execute what you want, so that you always have a clock on your back, and you work with the assistant director and the director to get what you need in the amount of time. The sun is setting, so there's always this pressure of time. So that's really like my biggest enemy is time, as a cinematographer, because there's so much beauty to be captured and there's so much to do, and it's our
Mm-hmm.
jobs to kind of help the director, organize the day and make sure to get what we need to tell that story. And I think with this format and with my team, like we were executing at a very high level and we did a wonderful job. I was very proud of all of them. And so I would say like having an amazing crew makes things feel easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, to be able to rise to that occasion and execute at that level in order to allow Ryan to put the camera on a crane or on a steady cam, and that the focus is impeccable, and that our team did a really great job. So yeah, I think the harder days are when the weather comes in for me and it's
Mm-hmm.
sunny, and then all of a sudden you have a storm come in New Orleans. It makes things difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think the weather is what you have to kind of be patient and work around on a movie like that.
And you're also a mother. You're married to a cinematographer. How are you balancing? Like, what's the day in the life of Autumn? Like, what does
I
it
mean,
look like for you?
well, it depends on what day it is. Is it a day when I'm on set on Sinners, or is it a day when I'm in LA taking my son to school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how old is your son, if you don't mind
He,
me asking?
yeah, he's 9.
Oh,
Yeah, so my husband's a DP too. It's not easy,
yeah.
because I think, the film industry can be difficult, scheduling, um, when our film's being made, how much time do you know before that? It can be very unorganized, but I think having family around you to help you with that has been kind of our solve and our guiding light. My parents, my mom, my stepdad help us with our son when we have work at the same time or when we can't be there. And so, that like I wouldn't be able to have this career without my mom and her help. And so I think you just always want at the core of it all is that the projects that you take that take you away from your family have to be important and worthy
Mm,
of you.
yeah.
If you're going to be away from your son and stuff, for, a certain amount of time. So yeah, I think it's logistics. You have to just make it work, but family allows us to do that. So I've gotten better at, organizing my time. Um, and when Ryan calls, it's very important, because I respect him on the highest level and he's very
Oh,
inspiring. So he's someone that, I know that when I'm away from my family to do a movie with him, that it will be, worthy of my time and respectful of my time. So
wow, and I think like looking over the trajectory of your career and all of the projects that you have taken on and that you have executed, do you have any particular one that stands out as like, I don't even really want to say like the most memorable, but what is and I'm sure all of these projects are your babies, right? And hold a special place in your heart, but like is there anyone that truly stands out like over the others?
um I mean, I always feel like Sinners is my favorite,
Mm-hmm.
and will always be my favorite, because of what it is and because the people that I made it with and the time and place that we were able to do that. Is a very special film. I think just on the page, it's a special film. The fact that people enjoyed it, and that the final product, it'll always have a very special place in my heart. But I do, looking back now, Loki was very important for me in my career, to take that next step, I think. It was a project that I did that like took me away from my son, early on the longest because I had originally said no to a lot because I didn't want to, be away yet because doing series is a very big time commitment. And I
Oh,
always look back and you kind of like it put me there and then it put me in a place to meet Ryan, because I had done
Mm-hmm.
that, and then Panther came up, and it's just there's a course that your life takes that you don't know, which direction it's going yet, but you have to trust that it's the right timing and the right course. And there's a interesting way that everything kind of happened after that that was very beautiful, and it led me to kind of that Ryan and the other people that we love making films with. So yeah.
Autumn, how would you say you feel that your career in general has like continued to elevate like over the years as far as your craft, like your gift, your talent? Do you take notice in that at all? Do you lean into it?
hmm Yeah, no, I definitely noticed. I mean, I think becoming a mother was a huge deal. Like I think for the work and like I mentioned before, just like the time that I'm away, what that means to be away, to tell a story, to make him proud, of the work that I'm doing and what his mother is doing and being on set, managing all the people that I do and executing, for a director and telling these big stories. Like it's a big deal, and I think I take it very seriously, way more serious, now that I'm a mom. And I find that, like, yeah, I mean, the more you do and the more you believe in yourself, it gives you that confidence, as a filmmaker and as a woman, to put all of it out there, even though that, some of the numbers are not showing that we're in the majority of, there needs to be more female directors. There needs to be more women telling their stories. And that's what I love about working with Ryan because, all of our heads of department are Black women or women of color. And,
Yeah.
that's very unique. And he trusts us, to tell his story and stories at the highest level. So, I value that trust he has in me. And he's brought the best of me, out in my photography and in my, thinking big and being brave. So I think it's been really nice to, see yourself reflected on set. I'm on set and I look over at, Hannah, and she's my sister, and, she's, doing these huge sets, beautiful sets. And so there's a bond there, and it's really nice to be in that environment. I mean, I'm sure you can imagine, like when you're in your community and you see yourself
Yeah.
reflected, and you're in charge of a lot, and you're there and you're making this film. It's a very nice place to be.
That's such a beautiful answer. It really is. But before I let you go, and I think speaking of women, speaking of females, you are being highly acknowledged and recognized for the shooting format in which you took behind the scenes for Sinners.
Mhm.
How does that make you feel? I really want to like mention this because it's kind of like a challenge for me to mention like the formats because clearly this is your world as a cinematographer, but I don't want to screw it up. So I'm gonna just leave the you know the way in which you shot, for
Mhm.
lack of better words. But being the first ever female cinematographer to take this approach in shooting Sinners, like how does that make you feel? And did you feel confident in knowing you would be able to execute it so excellently?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think about that stuff when we're doing new stuff because with Ryan, it's just, he gets so excited, which is so nice to be able to make a film with someone who is brave, and gets excited about new things, So
Yeah.
he's always calling me, like even on Wakanda, it's like, we're gonna shoot everything underwater, for real. They're going to be talking underwater. It's like, okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out the lenses. Let's figure out the camera body, the underwater housing. It's a very fun place to be when you're making films, to be excited like that. And
Yeah.
so with this project, when we decided to shoot large format, and he called me for the first time, and he was like, let's explore it. Let's get a test. I was excited. I was like, game on. We're always leveling up. And so it's a really, I feel like it's something that I enjoy because I'm a very technical person. I get very excited about learning new things and being, in that space, where things are new. Um, and so for me, it didn't cross my mind. I never thought, oh, no one's done this before, let alone a
Mhm.
female cinematographer. And then I got the call when I was driving to set. Vanessa Bendetti at Kodak, she texted me, and I remember being, because I drive to set with my operator, and I looked
Mhm.
at the text and I was like, oh shit, okay. And I told him, he was next to me, and I was like, I guess, this is a first. And I kind of just brushed it off because, we had to shoot that day, and, I got a lot on my mind. And then it was later when Ryan told me, and he looked in my eyes and he said, "This is a big deal, sis." And that's when I, felt it and got a bit emotional.
Mhm.
But it feels right that it comes from him, that this
Mhm.
this opportunity to shoot on this format came from him. And then just a weird circular thing. I'm named after a John Ford Western
Mhm.
called Cheyenne Autumn because my name's
Mhm.
Autumn Cheyenne,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
that film was shot on 65 millimeter. Um, yeah,
Wow.
so
How full circle is that? That's such
it's
a
pretty
full
weird.
circle moment.
Yeah, yeah, and so there's a lot going on. So when it
Yeah.
all became kind of, clear to me, it's this weird thing, where it happens. But you feel that responsibility to be grateful, but also to let young women know that, you know, if there's one, there can be more, to be encouraging and to be inspiring in that way, I think is a very nice place. And and to Ryan, it doesn't cross his mind. Ryan's like, this is my sister. This is the person that I think is the best to tell a story. Doesn't matter that, you haven't used it before. Like he doesn't think like that. And in turn, I don't think like that. To have someone trust in you, that is a great feeling. And so it's nice that a lot of girls have reached out to me and said, thank you for just existing because it's
Yeah.
helpful to my journey. So I take that very seriously.
That's so beautiful. This was an honor to not
Oh,
only
thank you.
meet you, but to speak with you and have the blessing to interview you. I truly thank you for your time today. And
Oh, thank you
again,
so much.
congratulations on everything that you have done, everything that's coming forth for you, and just all of your continued success. It truly was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. I feel the same. Thank you very much.